Jason, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I'm doing well, and we're here in West Texas, somewhere on our way to San Antonio, huh? Um, I'm hoping that everybody can hear you fine, but I don't know if it's your microphone or if it's what's going on. But I'm still not able to hear you.
I was muted.
There you go. There you
The
go.
host muted me, so now we're back. So I'm Jason Barr along with Pat Parris. This is the Huddle K-Gun 9 streaming platforms, and we are on our way from Tucson to San Antonio to cover the NCAA Sweet 16. I'm actually like 2 feet from Pat. I'm outside the news vehicle. Pat's in it. I'm cold. We're here. We're on our way to San Antonio to cover the NCAA Sweet 16. All right, Pat. Let's start with an Arizona team that was lucky and good to get by TCU. You know, if TCU had played like that the whole season, they wouldn't be a number 9 seed. But, you know, everybody gives Arizona its best shot. A borderline foul call at the end of regulation there. Wildcats get the benefit of the call. Dalen Terry doesn't get the shot off in time, but the Wildcats do prevail in overtime, and they win the first two games and get through San Diego onto San Antonio.
Yeah, exactly right. And if you're a TCU fan, it was definitely a foul there at Nord towards the end of regulation as the Wildcats trapped with Coloco and with Terry. And if you're a Wildcat fan, you're like, no foul, just a little contact. And from my perspective, and yes, it's hard to separate yourself as a Wildcat fan as I am, but it seemed to me that Miles was dribbling, got caught in the corner with Coloco, double back the other way. And don't forget, as Terry is pushing against him, that half court line becomes like an out of bounds. And so for the Wildcats, from our perspective, I'm telling you, I think he stepped on the line, was bumped, and tried to embellish that bump into a foul, fell across the half court line. Terry picks up the ball. Unfortunately, doesn't get it off in time. But, again, Jason, it's one of those things where it's hard to differentiate between the fan on both sides of the basketball and then what was enough to call a foul at that point. I think it was contact. I think he embellished it. I think they just had a play on, is what the officials thought.
Big time performances from Mathurin and Coloco. And before we get to going forward and then playing Houston and San Antonio for a trip to the Elite Eight, I want to get your take. There were some antics after the game. Kirk Kriisa taking the Estonia flag and then giving a little horn frog symbol or whatever it is to the alumni. Mathurin doing a little dance and apparently touching a cheerleader on the shoulder or whatever he did, tapping her on the shoulder on his way to the locker room. Definitely U of A getting some negative comments in Twitter, people using some language we're not going to use here. Your thoughts on Arizona? You could say, well, hey, these are young kids. Hey, they were being taunted by the TCU fans during the game. Not the best look for Arizona, but you know what? They're student athletes. That's why there's a 10-minute cooling off period. I'm not going to make a huge deal of it for 2 minutes after an emotional win.
Well, I think it's interesting from a national perspective. What was one of the first questions Tommy Lloyd got asked in the very first NCAA tournament press conference? He was asked, are you guys cocky because you win, or you win because you're cocky? So apparently the national rep of this team is they're cocky. We look at them as being fun-loving. Tommy Lloyd lets them freewheel and be themselves. And somehow that translates into cocky. And I think that's where all this stemmed from and continues to kind of manifest itself into. This is a team that's super confident to the borderline cocky, and some think it's beyond that line, and they are cocky. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I don't know why he went and if he almost touched a Horned Frog cheerleader, maybe he should have done that. But I understand the celebrations. When you're in the heat of the battle and you're getting jeered and booed and egged on by the opposition, then you win the game. That's what you do, especially when you're 20 years old.
All right, so on to play Houston in San Antonio. Unlike, better than spitting like the player did a month ago.
That's right.
To Mac Etienne, the UCLA player who did that. All right, so U of A had a little home court advantage, if you will, some fans advantage in San Diego. There's a lot of U of A people. It's going to be the opposite now. They're going to San Antonio. There's going to be more Houston fans probably. They're going up against a Houston Cougars team that made the Final Four last year. This is a completely different team, 5 new starters. They've been just as good, very physical team like TCU. Only lost 5 times the whole season. A couple of those losses were when a couple players were hurt. I've heard this as being TCU times 2 as far as physicality. As we take a look at the bracket here, and you see Arizona getting by TCU in the second round on to play Houston in the Sweet 16, and then Michigan and Villanova in the other bracket. The winner is going to play on a Saturday. But first things first, we got Arizona and Houston Thursday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Tucson time.
When the brackets came out, that Houston matchup to me was more intriguing than even the TCU matchup. I think we all thought they'd get by TCU. Now they had a struggle. They were able to get by. But I thought Houston was the one that, if you want to talk about a team that deserved a higher seed than a 5 seed, you look at Houston, who's lost 5 games. They had an RPI in the top 5. They have an NCAA net ranking, which is what the committee's supposed to use to help them with their seeding. They're 3. And how do they get a 5 seed? And that's clearly because of the conference they're in. They didn't get the respect that, maybe some other conferences would have gotten, certainly the Big Ten now with they got 9 and they only have 2 left. So my point is, Houston's always been on my radar as being a team that I'm a little concerned about. You've got Calvin Sampson, who has, rejuvenated this program. This program is for real. It all comes down to matchup, Jason. It comes down to matchups, and I still feel like Arizona has the upper hand. I still feel like they have more talent, but they had more talent than TCU, and they were taken to overtime.
Yeah, for sure. And that the game is going to be Thursday, Arizona and Houston. Here we go. Alex Steiniger, did the TCU game serve to humble the Cats? Will the wake-up call help going forward? I don't think it was any type of humble. I don't think it's any type of situation where they're not taking TCU or any team, seriously in this tournament. These are all good teams. We saw how physical TCU is, so I don't think they really needed a wake-up call. It's a little short turnaround here. Hopefully you've got a more healthy Kerr Kriisa. He was only 1 for 10. He's not 100%. You could tell just by looking at his ankle a couple of days ago, when it was still being all red. They kind of taped it up and he had a sock on, so you couldn't tell. But there's no way he's 100%. But they felt his presence. He came out there, he took that charge, and you knew that even if he wasn't going to be 100%, he was going to contribute and help more than anything else he was going to do out there. So hopefully you've got a little bit more healthy Kerr Kriisa. And Tommy Lloyd talked about a quick turnaround Sunday to Thursday. Yeah, it's quick as far as the NCAA tournament, but you still got 3 games between games. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I do too. I think that, having to have those makeup COVID games, remember, where they had to play
3 games
on a
in 1 week.
Yeah, 3 games in a week. I don't think that's an issue. And as far as humbling this team, I don't think it humbled the team. I think it just reinforced what Tommy Lloyd's been trying to tell this team, who had practically no tournament experience, that every game in the tournament is going to be difficult. And we've seen this, Jason, every year the top to bottom kind of compresses a little bit more as far as the parity goes in college basketball. It used to be a 1 would destroy a 16, a 2 would almost always beat a 15, and so on and so on. But now we're seeing it the last few years, even the 116s, you might have a close game until the last 5 minutes of the game. These second round games, you can have a 9 like a TCU, really give Arizona a number 1, a battle to the end. So having a 2, a Kentucky lose, is not a shocker like it was. It just reinforced what Tommy Lloyd was trying to teach these guys ahead of time from his experience 20 years at Gonzaga, versus these guys who, except for Umar Ballo, is that right? None of them had any tournament experience whatsoever.
Yeah. Now, what do you make of Azuolas Tubelis only playing 16 minutes? Here's if being confident looks cocky to others, and heck yeah, they're cocky. Azuolas Tubelis only 16 minutes. Tommy Lloyd said it was a matchup situation. Might have been his defense. I would look for him to get more minutes. They need Azuolas Tubelis at his best in every game. So that was one thing with the minutes and the combination we saw against TCU. I'd look for Tubelis to play more minutes.
Yeah.
I don't think we're his role in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, he has to, because if you say Matherin's the best player and Coloco's the second best player, well, Azuolas Tubelis is the third best player, right? And you need your best players to play their best basketball in these games. So you've got to have Azuolas Tubelis get back in there and play more minutes, and maybe the matchup will be more favorable. You also have to see, Jason, as we get to see Kerr Kriisa maybe round back into form a little bit more and get a little more confident with his ankle, maybe feel a little better with the maybe shoot a little bit better. We've got to get Justin Kier back to the minutes that he had, because right now they're all out of whack. And Justin Kier, I won't say he was exposed, but Justin Kier is a great sixth or seventh man off the bench, right? He's a great guy to come in and relieve Kerr Kriisa for minutes. But when he was exposed a little bit, I'll go ahead and say it, exposed a little bit, having to play all that time, he got into foul trouble, and now he's kind of out of sorts. So you really want to see everything to kind of slide back into place, where they get their 7-man rotation going right.
Yeah, so comment here. Do you think there are any other injuries to the Cats that are not being disclosed? Doesn't look like anybody's hurt out there. Kier and Kerr Kriisa are very different players. Kriisa is more of an outside shooter. Yeah. Kier will drive to the basket more. So it's Arizona and Houston Thursday for a trip to the Elite Eight. Meanwhile, the women's team, their season did come to an end yesterday against North Carolina. Not expected. I'm not unexpected, I should say. 4-5 game could go either way. I know Arizona was home. But they weren't playing well going into the tournament. Kate Reese certainly not playing 100% with an injured shoulder. You made the comment about it. She's kind of winds up her shot a little extra more with that shoulder. Pat, I'm very frustrated with the backcourt. I know they play good defense, but you just can't have a backcourt that can't score in the NCAA tournament. Guards win. Pellington had 30 against UNLV. You can't be, absent in the second round. Her shooting is a liability. Ben Duyani's scoring is a liability. It just seems like, and I don't mean to pick on just those two, just the team as a whole, it is a struggle to score a bucket. It should not be that hard to get 2 points.
Well, and we saw that, defenses are always the hallmark of an Adia Barnes team. But if you can't score the basketball, you're not going to win games, and you have to put a little more emphasis on scoring, and they will next year, of course, with the two star recruits coming in. But what was lacking at some point, Jason, is at some point in that season, before Kate Reese even got hurt, we saw a decline in the offense, a real struggle in the offense, whether it was teams making adjustments to them and them unable to knock down shots. And we talk about, you and I just talked about this last week, in baseball, hitting is contagious, and not hitting is contagious in baseball. Well, in basketball, hitting shots becomes contagious and everybody gets feeling good, but so does not hitting your shots. It has the opposite effect. And I think there was a lack of confidence offensively with this team even before Kate Reese got injured. It certainly didn't help when she did. And you're right, Jason. I pointed this out because I was at the game and covered it last night. And I was sitting on the scorer's table there in the front row. In the first half, I was watching her. She was shooting threes from the opposite side from me. And the windup Kate Reese needed, you could just tell the mobility might have been there okay, but the strength was gone in that shoulder. And I think it was detrimental to her game. Certainly, we applaud her for coming back and gutting it out. But she needs some work on that shoulder, and she's going to need an off season to get better.
All right, I don't know if you can hear me, but we got a train going. You see that train?
We're in West Texas. In case you're just joining us, we're in West Texas on our way over to San Antonio. Yep.
Once again, I'm Jason Barr. This is Pat Parris. We're somewhere in West. Actually, I know where we are. We're in a town called Sierra Blanca in West Texas.
Yep.
Texas Highway.
Right along I-10.
Right. We got this train, XPO Logistics, coming behind me. This is the hood of the car right here. Pat's around the corner in the car.
I'm in the car.
We're with the station's chief videographer, a man by the name of John Para. And we're on our way to cover the Sweet 16 in San Antonio. Lady Cats look like didn't want to take a shot. It was dribbling contest to them. They're looking to try to find some opening shot, but they're trying not to take a contested shot. But it's just like I said, it is a struggle to score a bucket with that team. Really, really hard to get 2 points. and they need some help from some other players coming in next year to try to score. Was Reese the key to them moving forward? Well, Reese is going to be a big key next year. I mean, she's their best player. She scores, leads the team in scoring and rebounding. I thought she really delivered a gutty effort against UNLV, and I think adrenaline was carrying her a little bit. Obviously, you're not going to have as much adrenaline in the second game, and she tried, but she's likely going to have surgery in the offseason, and she was playing hurt. So kudos to her, for giving everything she can, but she needs some help next year.
Yeah, and there's help coming. We should, we need to give credit to Adia Barnes in her recruiting and making it to the national championship game last year certainly helped with recruiting. There'll be some transfer portal movement. You might see some of these players go. You might see some new players come in that want to be a part of Adia Barnes. She has a terrific reputation nationally now, and I think the better days are still ahead. I think that making it to Final Fours is still a real possibility for this team in the years to come. This just was not their year. They had some great performances early on in the season, but they just never progressed the way you need to progress if you want to be a real title contender.
All right, Pat, we're going to cut this off today at 15 minutes. Any final thoughts here as we've got to get to San Antonio?
We still have, what do we still have, 500 miles to go or something?
Yeah,
like that? It's a long way
you drive from
Texas.
Tucson to El Paso. It's a 5 hour, whatever it is. You still got 7 hours to go.
It's not fun. No, we'll have fun though, because I think this team has been a real pleasure to coach. It's been to watch. It's been something that we didn't expect. None of us expected. So I think right now we all look at it as this is just kind of a bonus for us, bonus time. And yes, they're a 1 seed. There's still a chance they can make the Final Four, but let's, as they do, take it one game at a time. And next up is University of Houston in San Antonio. It's not going to be an easy chore, but we'll be following every step of the way, and I can't wait.
All right, Pat, thanks so much. I'm Jason Barr for Pat Parris. This has been The Huddle on KGUN 9 streaming platforms. We were wanted to do this for sure this week with all the good stuff to talk about. So we're going to get back in the car and head over to San Antonio. Thanks, everybody, for watching on the KGUN 9 streaming platforms, and we'll see you next week at this time.